Hey, Charles here with Rocky Mountain, and today I'm going to be showing you how to rebuild the top end on your 2017 and newer CRF450R or RX. This one's a 2025 and we have a leaky head gasket. So it's spewing coolant out the front, but whether you have that or you just need to do a rebuild because you're at that maintenance interval, you've got a lot of hours on your bike, or maybe you're puffing smoke, we've got you covered. Let's go ahead and get into it. To get this done, you just need some common hand tools. Now, I'm not going to go over everything, but the main thing to keep in mind is make sure you have some metric sockets and Allens. You want to go all the way up to a 10 millimeter size on your Allens. And then we've got a 14 millimeter thin wall spark plug socket. And then we have a couple special tools over here that are nice to have, but not absolutely necessary. So we've got a ring compressor. It's just going to make the job a little bit easier than using your hands. And then we also have the K&L cam chain tensioner tool. Now over here we've got a few cleaning tools. So the gasket scrapers, a wire brush, and these hose clamp pliers. I definitely recommend having some of those. You also want to have some feeler gauges to measure your valve clearances, and it's a good idea to check your ring end gap. We've got safety glasses, rubber gloves, and some rags. Now real quick, I do want to talk about parts. Everybody's list is going to be a little bit different, but your standard top end rebuild items are going to be a piston and gasket kit, an oil change kit. You're going to need some coolant. I also recommend installing a new spark plug while you're there. Now, if you need any of these parts, just head over to our website. We've got OEM and aftermarket options available, and you can just click the link in the description below. Okay, first thing we're going to do is drain our coolant. After that, we're going to remove our shrouds, our side panels. We've got these radiator braces as well. And we'll also remove our seat. Now to remove the tank, we're going to pinch off the vent line. We have the fasteners removed, and we can pull this to the left side of the bike. We're going to remove this completely. If you want, you can use that retaining strap to help as you disconnect your electrical connector. And for the fuel line, you just pull up this cover, and then we're gonna pop up this green clip, and we can pull straight out. And as I pull out, I'm just covering this up in case there's any fuel pressure. Then we'll go ahead and remove the tank. Next, we can remove our exhaust. If you have a dual exhaust or a different year of bike, the process might look a little bit different than this, but the idea here is to gain access to your top end. Next, we're going to remove the engine hangers. The manual shows this in a later step, but it's going to be easier to access everything else if you do it now. Next, we're going to remove our subframe. So for that, I'm going to start by disconnecting the battery. We've got 4 bolts holding this in place that need to be removed. And then on the bottom, we've got a rec. There's 3 bolts holding that bracket in place. We're going to disconnect the ECU. Then we've got our crankcase breather on top. We'll loosen that clamp up and pull the subframe off. Now for the throttle body, we've got this hose clamp. We're going to loosen it up. After that, we've got a few electrical connectors we're going to undo. We'll pull that out of the way. And I'm going to zip tie this up by the handlebar and put a rag over it. We're also putting a rag down the intake and just verifying we don't have dirt down there. We've got a couple more electrical connectors we're going to disconnect, including our engine coolant temp sensor coming off the back of the cylinder head. Then from here, we need to make sure everything's clean before we start tearing the engine down. So to do that, I'm going to use a rag and some cleaner along with some compressed air. And I'm going to remove the spark plug cap. We're also going to be removing the coil. After that, we'll remove this outer radiator hose. Then we can remove our spark plug. Next, we can remove our valve cover. Just make sure your gasket came with it. You've got one for the spark plug and each bolt as well. Next, we're going to remove the timing plug cover on the side. And I'm going to use an 8mm Allen, and I'm going to rotate the engine over clockwise from this side of the bike. And I'm going to be taking a look at the intake valve springs. So we're going to watch these ones right here, and just as soon as they open up and then close, I'm going to use a screwdriver. I'll set that down the spark plug hole. You could also use a big zip tie, and we're going to watch for the highest point and then stop. Now, to verify you're at the highest point, you can rotate the engine back and forth just a little bit at the top. And then once you've found that, you should be at top dead center on the compression stroke. We're going to verify that by looking down in this timing window. There's 2 marks on this gear, and we're going to make sure that those marks line up with the little tab. So the second one is your T or timing mark. And then we're going to look at the left side of the bike. We've got 2 marks on our cam, and those should be level with the camshaft holder mating surfaces. Now at this point, it's a good idea to check your valve clearances, and that way, if you're not taking the cylinder head apart and you do need to make adjustments, you can do that on assembly. The next step is to take the tension off your cam chain. So we've got this bolt in the back. I'm going to remove it. You can just loosen this up and remove the tensioner right now if you want. But I do recommend having one of these cam chain tensioning tools. It's going to make assembly so much easier. But I do want to point out that it's not a requirement for assembly. You can use a little flat blade screwdriver and some needle nose vice grips or something like that to make sure the tensioner is all the way backed off. But for this, we just line it up with the slots, and then that flat blade portion, we're just going to rotate clockwise until we have all the tension off the chain. All right, with that tension off the chain, I can go ahead and loosen up the 4 bolts on the cam holder. And I'm just going to crack them loose in a crisscross pattern first. The next thing I'm going to do is rock the cam cap free. Now, there's a couple dowel pins and some little C-clips in here that are going to hold this tight. So you're going to have to rock that free, and I'm keeping this finger just on the edge of that cap to make sure that clip doesn't fall down into my bottom end. So these are the little clips I'm talking about, and you can see they come off real easy, so just be really careful with those. And we've got our 2 dowel pins in the cap. Next, you want to cut a piece of safety wire, and we've got about 2 feet of this. This bearing next to the sprocket is going to slide to the side. It's going to give you a little bit of space. Slide the wire in. Pull the chain off the sprocket and remove the camshaft. That way we can fish our chain out. Now we're going to start with the intake rocker arm. So we're going to start pulling this shaft out. Pull that rocker arm out, and it's going to say L on it. Then we'll keep pulling the shaft out. Right side's going to have an R on it. We'll remove all these pieces, then remove the shims, and we're going to lay everything out in order. Next, I'm going to take an M8 by 1.25mm thread pitch bolt. I'm going to screw that into the exhaust rocker arm shaft. I'm going to pull that out along with the rocker arms. Then we'll pull the shims. And then down by the cam chain, we've got a smaller bolt. So we're going to use an 8mm socket, and we'll remove it. And then from here we have 4 cylinder head bolts. We're going to loosen those up in a crisscross pattern, and we're going to do this in several steps. So we'll crack them loose. Remove the back 2 bolts, And then the front two are not gonna come out unless you rock the head back. So break the head free, use a dead blow hammer if you need to, and then remove those two front bolts and pull the head out. Remove your tensioner tool and then pull the cylinder up and keep a hand on the piston and connecting rod so they don't drop as the cylinder comes off. Then place a rag around the rod to keep anything from going into the bottom end and to keep the rod from banging against the case. Next, use a small screwdriver or needle nose pliers and remove the circlip. You should be able to push the piston pin out, but if it's stuck, you can use a Motion Pro piston pin tool. All right, next we're gonna remove this base gasket, and we wanna clean up this sealing surface, so I'm gonna use a gasket scraper, little contact cleaner, and a rag. And as you do this, just make sure you don't get any of that material or dirt or anything down in the bottom end. I'm also gonna clean up the small end on that connecting rod, and from here, we are ready to make some inspections. So with this, the first thing I'm going to take a look at is the connecting rod. So the main thing with this is we want to make sure that there's no up and down play. And I will say, you might notice a little rock from side to side. Don't get that confused. We're just talking about straight up and down play. So you can move the rod to one side, pull straight up and down. As long as you don't feel anything, you're good to go. The other thing we want to do is take a look at the small end of the connecting rod. You're going to look down inside there where the wrist pin rides. Make sure it's not pitted, there's no scoring or deep grooves. If it looks damaged inside of there, definitely get the connecting rod replaced. You know you have some more work to do, but this one's looking pretty good. The next thing you want to inspect is your cam chain. The main thing you're looking for here is that it's not kinked up. So if you move it around, it should be able to move freely. If you find any links that kink up, then you know it needs to be replaced. And if you have a lot of hours on your bike, I would recommend doing it anyway. Now, just to the side, we're going to look at the cam chain guides. So with these, you just want to make sure there's no deep grooves worn in them. Make sure they're not cracked. We're going to do the same inspection for the other one as well. So these are looking good. We're going to head over to the bench. Now over at the bench, we need to finish cleaning up some of our parts and get these ready for inspection. Now with the cylinder, we still have a couple dowel pins in here. You want to locate those. So on this side, these are going to go towards the cylinder head. And where we had a head gasket leak, pay close attention to this, and you want to look for any signs of damage or anything that could have caused this gasket to go bad. Then on the bottom, we've got two more dowel pins. And if you haven't already, make sure you remove your cam chain tensioner. We've got that gasket. From here, we need to clean up all of our parts. So the first thing I want to talk about is the cylinder. Now I like to deglaze these and clean them up with a hone, and we do have hones that are made for plated or Nicosil cylinders on our website. So if you choose to do that, we've got a separate how-to video that guides you through the process. You also want to make sure that your gasket surfaces are nice and clean on both the cylinder and the cylinder head. And then the rest of the stuff, we're pretty much just spraying off the oil and we're getting everything ready for some inspections. Now with the cylinder, to inspect this, what we're doing is looking down inside the bore and we're making sure that it still has a crosshatch pattern. Now, on the front and back of the cylinder, that's usually where you're gonna see some wear or damage if there is any. So you wanna look down in here, and on ours, you can see some really light scuffing on each side. but it's really not bad enough to even worry about. So I would feel good about running this cylinder. But if you see any chipping, pitting, or flaking on your Nicosil coating, or if you see any grooves that if you run your fingernail across, if they catch in there, that's when you're going to want to either replate your cylinder or you can just buy a new one. Now, one more thing I want to mention about wear on this cylinder is if you see some really polished areas that don't have any crosshatch marks, I highly recommend taking some measurements with a dial bore gauge. Those measurements are outlined in your manual. And if you don't have the special tools, you can always take this to your local shop or machine shop and have them measure it for you. All right, so that's it for part one of our top end rebuild for the 2017 and newer Honda CRF450Rs and RXs. If you have any questions, leave those down in the comments. If you need to rebuild your cylinder head, we've got a separate video for that. Maybe you just need to do the valve stem seals. Either way, go check out our channel and subscribe. And if you need any parts for your bike, you can find that stuff on our website by clicking the link in the description below. I'm Charles with Rocky Mountain ATV MC. Thanks for watching.